Good afternoon, friends. Sorry I had to change the time today. I had a little shift in schedule. So welcome to Making Love Better, tips on making your love relationships better, tips on how to take back your power and not engage in conflict, but rather engage in connection. I'm Sheila Pearl, the love doctor of the Hudson Valley. It is my pleasure to be sharing with you some of what I call the golden nuggets of having more successful and loving and engaging relationships, whether it's your lover, your spouse, your parents, your kids, your best friend, your coworker. Today's tip is about feedback. Now, feedback is not criticism. Feedback is not attacking. Feedback isn't even a complaint. Feedback is the opposite of judgment. Feedback is an element of curiosity. So I just want to kind of connect the dots with the last few days that I've been offering you tips. The first day I offered you the tip on taking a pause, the power of the pause. And in that moment, you're choosing to gather yourself, gather your thoughts, ask yourself, what am I feeling? How do I want to respond? Taking that moment or two to take back your power in that way. And the second tip was about the power of the smile. To recognize that in that gesture, in that intention, in choosing to smile, you're saying to yourself and you're saying to the other person on the other side of the conversation, we're not enemies. We're in this together. And my smile means that we're still in a state of affection and love. Maybe I'm upset about something. Maybe I don't know or understand about something that was said or done. Maybe I'm thinking all kinds of things that aren't making any sense, and I'm feeling things that I don't want to have to react to. So the smile helps to lift my energy, gives me a moment to send a signal that we're in this together. And yesterday we talked about the power of taking a deep breath, or lots of deep breaths. Because when we're in a state of tension and fear and acrimony and a state of fight or flight, the blood is draining from our brain, the oxygen is draining from our brain, and in taking that deep breath, we're infusing back into our brain and our body the much needed oxygen to give us energy and clarity and balance. So likewise, today, the whole idea of giving feedback, or being willing to give feedback and being willing to receive feedback, is about stepping aside from judgment and stepping into seeking to understand. Stepping back from making an assumption and stepping into curiosity. Stepping back from making a judgment and stepping into compassion. So this is the way it goes with feedback. Something happened and I'm upset. Now what? The feedback comes from my wanting to understand what the other person was doing or saying or not doing or not saying, so that you could understand where they might be coming from that was causing turmoil within you. And it's also generating the exchange, the reciprocity in seeking to understand, because you want the other person on this other side of the conversation to also understand what's happening for you. So it's an exchange of information, of curiosity, constantly seeking to understand. So for instance, I told a story the other day about the buildup of upset I had over the fact that my dear husband just kept taking off the lids of the ketchup, the mayonnaise, and the mustard, and just didn't put them back. And it really annoyed me. It pissed me off. I got to the point where I was beginning to take it personally and to assume that he just wanted to find ways to annoy me. And that brings into focus here the value of those 4 agreements that Don Miguel Ruiz is famous for? 2 of them are the most important. Well, they're all very important. The second one is don't take it personally. Whatever anyone else is doing or saying isn't about you. And every time you and I make it about us, we're missing the point that what they're doing or saying is coming through their lens, through their perspective. They're thinking their thoughts the way they think their thoughts. They're not thinking their thoughts the way I think my thoughts. And the other agreement, which is really important in terms of this whole idea of feedback, is don't make assumptions. Check it out. So often we make assumptions about what somebody's doing or not doing, saying or not saying. We make an assumption, usually to our own detriment, so it becomes hurtful to us. And then we believe we're right about making the assumption, but we've never checked it out. So in the example I gave you about my husband and the lids to the ketchup, the mayonnaise, and the mustard, I exploded as I think I probably had exploded over the years about the same thing. In other words, I was always complaining and why can't you just put the lids back and can't you pay attention to me, or am I not that important to you? In other words, I was taking it very personally that he didn't put the lids back. And in the story I tell, I started to laugh at this particular juncture, and then he started to laugh, and we sat down for a moment. We talked about the 80-20. Boobala, how much of our marriage is working? 80%? Yeah, so why don't you focus on the 80% that's working and be curious about the 20% that isn't working? So that stuck with me. So I had a couple in my office a couple weeks ago where they had an altercation over the issue of how the wife toasted her toast in the toaster oven. And the husband took issue with her not using the toaster oven correctly, and even took out the instructions to the toaster oven to show her, you see, you're supposed to do this and this. And she said, I've been toasting my toast like this for 3 years since we got the toaster oven. What's the deal with your making an issue about how I make my toast? And in the telling of the story, I stopped him and I said, so tell me, what was it about for you? And he admitted he just needed to be right. I said, really? The 2 of you are coming to me because you've recently gotten married and the shit has already hit the fan. There's trouble in River City, and you're making an issue over how your wife is toasting her toast in the toaster oven that you've had for 3 years. You've watched her do it this way for 3 years, and you choose this occasion to take out the instructions and show her how she's doing it wrong. And you admit to me that it's all about you being right. So tell me, what price are you paying for your need to be right? And he did start to laugh. And he nodded his head. And she looked at me like, thank you. I mean, I was validating, the kind of ridiculous nature of this conflict they were having, this exchange they were having. And the fact of the matter is, the exchange they were having over the toaster oven really was the tip of the iceberg of the things that were going on inside their relationship that weren't working too well, and neither one of them was talking about it. And very often when you don't talk openly about things that are going on, the conflict comes out where you least expect it, even around a toaster oven and how you're toasting your friggin' toast. So feedback is being willing to take that pause, being willing to have the intention of smiling, being willing to take that deep breath and say to the other person, there's something that's been happening for a while that's really been bothering me. And I haven't said anything, and I didn't realize how much it was bothering me. But I think before it kind of spins out of control, I want to tell you about it. Now, I told the story of my client who's been in this new relationship, but they're only about 6 months in. And her complaint, which she was holding on to, which is why she called me to ask how she could handle it, her complaint was about his using his cell phone all the time, being on the phone, going out to dinner, he was on the phone maybe 3/4 of the time. And she held her tongue because she knew that if she didn't, she might blow a gasket, she might say something the wrong way, and she wanted to have a session with me so that we could review the rules of feedback. So feedback is to be curious. Be willing to be curious. Be willing to seek to understand. Be willing to say to the other person, I don't want to point a finger of blame. I don't want to accuse you of anything. And maybe you didn't notice. And I'm letting you know how it is for me. And for Cece, in the story that I tell you, she said, I wanted you to know that it hurts my feelings. It hurts my feelings when we go out to dinner and you're on the phone the majority of the time. She said, it doesn't hurt my feelings when you occasionally need to take a call for a client for business, and it doesn't hurt my feelings when you occasionally take a call from one of your kids while we're together. I understand. But it seems like the overwhelming majority of the time when we're together, you're on your phone, and the message that I get is that I'm not important. Now that's feedback. It's seeking to understand. It's seeking to help the other person in this relationship that you both agree is important to you, to let them know how this is going for you, to share the information, to engage in a seeking to understand one another better. When she was able to express herself on the level of feedback, her boyfriend, who adores her, was very remorseful and very chagrined and very embarrassed to be given a picture of himself with this mirror she was holding up. But she did it in such a way, she didn't want to shame him, she didn't want to guilt him, but she wanted him to know what it felt like on her end. And he said to her, "Thank you so much for telling me that. I had no idea." I often tell the story of one of my best friends of over 50 years. Ray and I met long ago as young, budding opera singers, and we've been in each other's lives all this time. So we've had a lot of time together. And about 30 years ago, which means about 20 years into our friendship, which was a sweet and deep and wonderful friendship, we were out to lunch, as we would often do. We'd often go out for lunch, so just the two of us. And she said to me, "Sheila, you know I love you." I said, "Of course I know you love me, and I love you too." She says, "You know that I value our friendship." I said, "Yes, I know. I value our friendship too." So she says, "I've got to tell you something that's been bothering me for a long time, but I've been holding on to it, hoping maybe it would change, but it doesn't change. And I want you to know that if things don't change in our relationship, I don't want it." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" She said, "Whenever we're together for lunch, I feel like the whole conversation is all about you, and I feel irrelevant sitting here because you don't engage with me about me, you engage with me about you, and I feel like you're using me as your surrogate therapist. And I don't want to be your therapist. I want to be your friend. And I want this to be a two-way street. I want reciprocity in our relationship. I want to feel that I am as important to you as I know you are to me." I said, "I can't believe that I'm hearing this. You're talking to me about someone I would never recognize as me." "I do that?" She says, "Yes, Sheila. When you're with me, you're very self-absorbed." Now that's receiving feedback. And I had a choice of either receiving this as feedback or hearing it as criticism and basically saying, "I don't know what you're talking about, you're unfair, it's not true." But I didn't do that because I valued Ray. I valued our friendship, and I knew that she wouldn't be saying this to me if it wasn't true for her and if it didn't matter to her. So I didn't argue with her. I didn't say that's not true. I said, I had no idea that I was behaving that way. It wasn't my intention. Now, the fact of the matter is that Ray was one of the few people that I could vent to, one of the few people that I could speak freely to, because I had a lot going on in my life, and I really had very few people that I could be open with and honest with. So it's true that I probably did use her or see her as almost like a surrogate therapist. But I had no idea of the extent to which I left her out and I pushed her aside and did not give her the feeling or the experience that I cared as much about her as she was called upon to care about me. And what she was saying was, I need a two-way street. I need reciprocity in our friendship. And I said, I want that too. Please give me another chance. And she said, of course I will. I love you. But I had to say this because I had a feeling you had no idea. I said, you got that right. I had no idea. Do you know that to this day, every time I'm preparing to go spend some time with my friend Ray, I'm thinking to myself, reciprocity, reciprocity. Make it about her. I know she loves me, and I know I'll have my time to share about me, but I want to focus on my friend. Because that conversation for me was a wake-up call. If we could treat our most precious relationships and the conflicts that we're having in these relationships as some form of wake-up call, and treat even the conflicts that we're having with one another that don't go too well, treat that as feedback, how much farther would we go in furthering our loving connection? How much more could we make love in our relationships rather than strife? So, hello, I see a whole bunch of you. Hi, Shirley Ann. Hi, Carrie. Hi, Marion. I can't see some of you. They're rolling up. Let's see. There you are. Hi, Jasmine, Felice, David, Steve. It's so good to see you. Some of you I haven't seen for a while, so it's really good to see you. So today, it's kind of a buildup of the ways that you can take back your power. Do you see the pattern? That you can, by pausing, by smiling, by taking that deep breath, take back that power that you might be giving away if you react to a situation. And then the power that you're giving yourself to both give and receive feedback is enormous, because you're allowing yourself to hear the other person, like I heard my friend Ray, or you're allowing yourself to use your voice and speak out like Cece did with her new boyfriend, because Cece's issue that she originally came to me about over 10 years ago is about using her voice. And she began to use her voice and become more proactive in her life. She kind of disappeared until about 4 months ago, actually, and she called me back and she said, I think we need to reconnect. I can't think of anyone else I want to talk to. It's Sheila Pearl. So that was a wonderful kind of testimony to the value of our conversations over the years. But the point is, in all of our relationships, we have an opportunity to give and receive feedback, or to choose to hear the slings and arrows that may be coming in our direction, or it feels like slings and arrows, or it feels like a criticism, to see it as a form of feedback. Sometimes you have to be willing to be proactive enough and intentional enough in a moment of heat, where you are receiving the slings and arrows in the spirit of feedback, so that you can also give the feedback even when you're in the midst of heat. So I hope that this tip is helpful to you in making love better in your lives. Making love better with your children, who may just exasperate you sometimes. Making love better with your spouse, who sometimes you wonder if you like each other. You know you love each other, or you think you do, but sometimes you're not so sure if you like each other. And with your best friends, sometimes the closer the relationship, sometimes the more conflict might come up, because the more vulnerability we have with those people closest to us. So those who are closest to us, they have the power to trigger us. They have the power to get our goat. They have the power to poke us. They have the power to push our buttons. And our job is to choose to take back our power so that we don't allow ourselves to react to having our buttons pushed. This is an ongoing challenge for all of us. So I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. I wish you that in this day that you will go out and make love better in all ways in your lives. I'll be with you tomorrow. I'll let you know the time because, frankly, I don't know what my schedule is yet. So it's kind of like the shifting sands of the Sahara at the moment. So as soon as I know what my schedule is, I will see you tomorrow. Making love better. Bye for now.